Well, I've never done ashes in my life, and that's what she wanted. And there's chips in there, bruh. I'm like, what is these, teeth? Oh my God.
Not everyone from Dog the Bounty Hunter ended up with a happy ending. From 2004 to 2012, Dog the Bounty Hunter followed Duane Chapman and his team as they hunted fugitives and became one of reality TV's most recognizable families. But years after the cameras stopped, the cast members' lives took very different paths, some tragic, some controversial, and all far from what fans expected. So where are they now? And what really happened to the people who made the show famous? Join us as we break down what happened to the Dog the Bounty Hunter cast and where they are in 2026. Beth Chapman. If there was one person whose presence made Dog the Bounty Hunter feel like more than a law enforcement reality show, it was Beth Chapman. She was not just the show's co-star or Duane's wife, she was also the operational backbone of the entire enterprise. Beth was the licensed bail bondswoman who had become the youngest person in Colorado history to receive a bail license when she was 29 years old. However, that record was later broken by her stepdaughter, Lisa. Beth Chapman was born Alice Elizabeth Smith on October 1967 in Denver, Colorado. She had initially worked as a waitress, a clerk, and a nightclub dancer before her life intertwined with that of Duane Chapman, also known as Dog. They spent years in an on and off again relationship before they eventually got married in Waikoloa Village, Hawaii, on May 20, 2006. However, their wedding wasn't like any other, and the atmosphere that should have been filled with excitement was shrouded by extremely tragic news. The wedding happened on the same day that Duane learned his daughter Barbara had been killed in Alaska the night before. He was told on the morning of his wedding. He consulted a minister, and the family decided to go ahead and celebrate Barbara's life during the reception. The wedding concluded as planned, but that day was forever marked with that tragedy. Beth brought 12 children into the blended Chapman household and had 2 of her own with Duane, Bonnie Jo, and Gary. She is also quite ambitious and also served as president of the Professional Bail Agents of the United States before her health began to change. In September 2017, after months of a persistent cough she had been dismissing as nothing major, Beth was diagnosed with stage 2 throat cancer. She underwent a 13-hour surgery to remove the tumor and was declared cancer-free by December of that year. Dog documented the entire process for an A&E special called Dog and Beth, Fight of Their Lives, inviting the audience that loved them into one of the hardest experiences of their life, which was very much in character for a family that had always conducted its most private moments in front of a camera. Unfortunately, that wasn't the end of her fight with cancer. The cancer returned in November 2018. She had emergency surgery at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. In early 2019, she and Dog began filming a new show called Dog's Most Wanted for WGN America, with her health battle as a central storyline. On June 22, 2019, she was hospitalized at the Queens Medical Center in Honolulu and placed in a medically induced coma. She died on June 26, 2019, at 5:32 in the morning Hawaii time. She was 51 years old. Duane posted on Twitter immediately afterward. It's 5:32 in Hawaii. This is the time she would wake up to go hike Coco Head Mountain. Only today, she hiked the stairway to heaven. We all love you, Beth. See you on the other side. The final episode of Dog's Most Wanted was dedicated to her memory and included footage of the family scattering her ashes at sea, which is the kind of farewell that the audience who had spent 15 years watching her deserved to witness. Her death was the defining loss of the Chapman family's public life, and the tragedy that followed it for Duane personally was not finished when they scattered her ashes into the Pacific Ocean. Let's go back to the first death that shattered Duane. Barbara Katie Chapman, the wedding day tragedy. Most people who watched Dog the Bounty Hunter remember the major cast members: Dog, Beth, Leland, Duane Lee, baby Lissa. What the casual audience often forgot, or never fully knew, was the tragedy that had already visited the Chapman family in the year the show first started building its national audience. Barbara Katie Chapman was Duane's daughter from his third marriage to Lisa Ray Britton. She was born on June 8, 1982, in Denver, Colorado, and became a mother herself at 19, when she gave birth to a son she named Travis Drake Lee Chapman. Her sister, baby Lissa, has described the childhood they shared as one marked by instability. Their mother's alcohol problems, limited supervision, and circumstances that made growing up in the Chapman household genuinely difficult. On May 19, 2006, the night before Dog's wedding to Beth in Hawaii, Barbara Katie and her boyfriend Scott Standifer II were driving back toward Fairbanks, Alaska, from the Chena Hot Springs Resort.
Before the couple's nuptials, the bounty hunter's oldest daughter, Barbara, was killed in a tragic car accident. According to Hawaii News Now, an SUV that Barbara and her friend were traveling in went off the road on May 19, 2006.
Their vehicle left the roadway, hit an embankment, launched into the air, rolled, and landed upside down in the trees. There were no skid marks on the road, no indication of braking before they left the pavement. Troopers suspected drugs or alcohol may have played a role. Both Barbara Katie and Scott Standifer were 23 years old. Neither survived. She was survived by her son Travis, who was 4 years old at the time. Dog learned the news on the morning of his wedding. A minister counseled the family, and they decided together to proceed with the ceremony and to announce the loss to guests at the reception, celebrating Barbara's life rather than letting her death consume the day entirely. Beth and Duane went through with the wedding on the same morning they learned that his daughter was gone. The show covered their grief in subsequent episodes, and Dog has posted tributes to Barbara every year on the anniversary of her death. Travis, her son, later became the subject of custody proceedings when Duane and Beth sought and received temporary guardianship after what Dog described as a disturbing situation involving the child in his father's home. Dog took on the responsibility of raising his grandson with the same commitment he had brought to every complicated situation in his family's life. Beth was gone, Barbara was gone too, and the losses did not stop there. In July 2025, tragedy visited the Chapman family yet again in a way that nobody was prepared for. The 2025 family tragedy. In July 2025, Duane Chapman's stepson, Gregory Zecca, who is the son of his current wife, Francie Frayne, was involved in the accidental fatal shooting of his 13-year-old son, Anthony, in Florida. Francie posted publicly asking for prayers and describing the incident as an incomprehensible tragic accident. Dog, who has now experienced the death of a daughter, the death of the wife who was the love of his life, and now the death of a step-grandson under horrific circumstances, has continued to live publicly while carrying a cumulative weight of loss that would have broken most people. His grief was the backdrop against which he married again. After Beth died, he met Francie Frayne, who had also recently lost her husband, and the two of them began supporting each other through parallel bereavement. They married in a ceremony in Colorado Springs in 2021, with Dog hiring extra security after receiving an anonymous threat that someone intended to destroy Francie's wedding gown. Several guests reported their car tires were slashed during the event. Even their wedding carried the Chapman family's signature combination of genuine emotion and surrounding chaos. Dog himself, now in his 70s, has continued working as a bounty hunter. He released a memoir in 2024 titled 9 Lives and Counting, A Bounty Hunter's Journey to Faith, Hope, and Redemption, and has remained active on social media, YouTube, and in the bounty hunting work that has defined his life for 5 decades. He has spoken publicly about his faith as the thing that has kept him moving through each successive loss, which is consistent with the philosophy he demonstrated every single time he put someone in the back of his truck and talked to them about second chances on the way to jail. Sadly, death wasn't the only thing that plagued the Dog the Bounty Hunters and its cast members. Let's talk about the arrests that left everyone stunned. The arrests in Mexico and what they meant. The cast of Dog the Bounty Hunter was not simply a family of people who chased criminals. It was, in some cases, a family of people who had their own complicated histories with law enforcement. And the most dramatic legal episode in the show's history involved 3 of its core cast members being arrested on federal warrants at the request of a foreign government. In June 2003, before the show began airing, Duane Chapman, his son Leland, and associate Tim Chapman traveled to Mexico and captured serial sexual assaulter Andrew Luster, the Max Factor Cosmetics heir, in Puerto Vallarta. Andrew had fled the United States during his trial on 86 counts of sexual misconduct and assault. Dog's capture of him was the specific event that led to his television show being developed. But Mexican authorities arrested all 3 of them immediately after the capture. And when the 3 bounty hunters posted bail and left Mexico without returning for their court hearing, the Mexican government classified them as fugitives. In September 2006, with the show now 2 seasons into its run and millions of viewers watching every week, U.S. Marshals arrived at Chapman's property in Hawaii and arrested all 3 of them on charges of illegal detention and conspiracy at the request of the Mexican government. Their bail was set at $300,000 for Dog and $100,000 each for Leland and Tim. They were released with ankle monitoring devices and could not leave the country. The irony of a bounty hunter being placed under the same kind of conditions he regularly helped enforce on the people he apprehended was not lost on anyone watching. The Mexican legal case eventually resolved without extradition, and the charges were ultimately dropped after a years-long legal process. But the Mexico arrests were not the last time law enforcement and the Chapman family found themselves on the same side of a set of handcuffs. Dog himself had an original conviction on his record from 1976, when he was present at a robbery that turned fatal in Texas. His companion fatally harmed a man during the robbery while Dog waited outside. He was convicted of first-degree murder as an accessory, sentenced to 5 years in Texas State Penitentiary, and served 18 months before being paroled. That conviction is the reason Dog cannot legally own a firearm and has been denied entry to the United Kingdom. The bounty hunter who spent 8 seasons on A&E catching people who violated their bail was himself a convicted felon, operating under the specific legal restrictions that come with that status. Now, let's uncover where the other members of the cast are today and what they are doing. The sons and daughters, and where they are now. The Chapman family that appeared on the show across 8 seasons was large, blended, and complicated in ways that the format could not always fully contain. What happened to the sons and daughters after the cameras stopped matters as much as what happened to Dog himself. Duane Lee Chapman II, Dog's eldest son, left the show dramatically during its final season in 2012. He was seen on camera getting into a heated argument with Beth over the operations of the business. He said to her, "You want me fired? You gotta fire me." Leland quit alongside his brother. Both of them confirmed their departure from the show in January 2012. As of recent reporting, Duane Lee has moved to Florida and maintains a very private life away from television and public attention, having never returned to the family's on-screen enterprise. Leland Chapman, born December 14, 1976, eventually reconciled with his father enough to appear in the follow-up show, Dog and Beth, On the Hunt, which ran until 2015. He subsequently relocated to Alabama, where he operates his own bail bond company and heads Bounty Hunter Tactical Supply Company. Leland has maintained a public presence on social media and continues to work in the bail and bounty hunting industry in his own right, separate from his father's television enterprises. Tucker D. Chapman, born in 1983, has been open about a long and ongoing battle with addiction and repeated encounters with the criminal justice system. In a candid Instagram post in May 2025, he described himself as a crash test dummy for recovery, writing about his experiences with addiction, the criminal justice system, and his desire to use his own difficult journey to help others who are stuck in the same cycle of addiction, crime, and punishment. His transparency about his ongoing struggles is both honest and difficult to read, particularly for anyone who watched him grow up on the show. Christopher Duane Chapman, who is Dog's son from a relationship he had before his first marriage, and whose existence Dog did not learn about until 1994, has had multiple arrests. He was convicted of menacing in 2020 and sentenced to 3 years in prison. His adoptive mother has spoken about the difficulty of his life, including his struggle with drugs and a complicated relationship with Dog that was affected significantly by friction with Beth. Lisa Chapman, known as Baby Lisa, the youngest daughter who trained as a licensed bail bondswoman during the show and broke her stepmother Beth's record by becoming the youngest licensed bounty hunter in Colorado history at 19, has maintained a public presence through social media and has been vocal about her own mental health journey in the years since the show ended. Bonnie Chapman, Dog and Beth's daughter, born in 1998, has been open in recent years about her own fitness journey, losing significant weight with medical assistance and reaching her target weight in 2024 after years of struggling. Gary Chapman, the youngest of Dog and Beth's children, born in 2001, has pursued a career in law enforcement and shares glimpses of his life and faith on social media. Tim Chapman, the associate who worked alongside Dog and appeared as a core team member across multiple seasons, is the most thoroughly private of the show's prominent faces. He is not related to the Chapman family despite the shared surname, and he was one of the 3 arrested by U.S. Marshals in 2006 in the Mexico situation. After the show ended, he essentially disappeared from public life entirely. No social media presence, no television appearances, no public statements. He is a man who was famous for years and then chose anonymity completely, which in the context of the Chapman family's consistent public visibility makes him stand out in a very specific way. The production team, the supporting cast members, and the bounty hunting associates who rotated through the show across its 8 seasons have largely returned to private lives without the television framework that brought them brief visibility. The show created a specific kind of fame that did not translate into sustained careers for most of its peripheral participants. It was too tied to the specific Chapman family dynamic to generate the kind of general entertainment industry interest that produces follow-on opportunities. But that pattern didn't apply to everyone who passed through the show. Long after the cameras stopped shaping everyone else's visibility, one central figure remained firmly in the public eye: Duane Chapman. Where Dog stands in 2026. At 73 years old, Duane Chapman is still active, still visible, and still carrying the specific combination of faith, loss, and relentless forward motion that defined every episode of the show that made him famous. He has been vocal about his desire to be appointed as some form of immigration enforcement authority, and in a 2024 Fox News interview, told host Jesse Waters he would like a job as a deportation czar if Donald Trump were re-elected. Whether that ambition ever translates into anything formal is unclear, but the statement reflects the specific intersection of law enforcement identity and political alignment that has characterized his public statements in recent years. He lost people dear to him, absorbed the death of a grandchild and a step-grandson. He has watched his children fight addiction, legal trouble, and the specific difficulties that come with growing up in a public family that does not always provide the stability children need. And he keeps going, because that is the only mode he has ever known. The show that made the Chapman family famous ran 8 seasons. The life that happened after it ended has been more dramatic, more painful, and in some ways more revealing of who these people actually are than anything that aired during those 8 seasons. Some of them are gone. Some of them are struggling. And the man at the center of it all is still out there, still chasing fugitives, still talking about second chances, and still carrying more loss than most people will experience in an entire lifetime. Of all the losses and legal troubles that have followed the cast of Dog the Bounty Hunter after the show ended, which one do you think has had the most lasting impact on the Chapman family as a whole? And do you think Dog's continued determination to stay active and public after everything he has been through is admirable, or is it something more complicated than that? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.